everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my July book haul, and I feel like I'm not exaggerating when I say two things. One, I bought so many books this month, and two, I am so excited about all of them. Maybe it's because of my birthday month, but I feel like I did treat myself to so many exciting titles, and I just can't wait to read them. So this is a very special book haul to me because I don't know, I just feel like there's so many amazing books in here that I want everyone else to be excited about as well. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I will have all of the titles and links down below for them, so if you're curious and want to check them out, they will be down there. All right, so the first book I'm going to talk about is a new July release, and that is Cinderella is Dead. This is a YA retelling of the classic tale Cinderella. I am obviously a huge fan of any type of fairy tale retelling, any folklore retelling. I love a fantastical reinterpretation of a well-known tale. It is just something that's kind of like a buzzword when it comes to books that I'm always curious about picking up. This follows our main character Sophia, who lives in a world where just because Cinderella has found her Prince Charming doesn't mean the tale of it has ended. In fact, every year teen girls are expected to attend a ball where they're supposed to find a husband. And if the girl is unable to find a suitable match at the ball, they essentially go missing. Our main character Sophia has a childhood love whom she would much rather marry than some other unknown prince, so she decides herself to flee, and she and the boy also decide to bring down the kingdom that kind of has this forced ball situation anyway. Again, this just sounds really interesting. I've heard fantastic early buzz. Love a Cinderella retelling, especially one that kind of has a darker twist to it, so excited to have this. Again, this just came out this month, so a new release to have on your radar. Speaking of very anticipated releases, I also have The Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. This was one of my most anticipated fantasy releases for the year, so needless to say, I'm very excited to have it in my hands. This follows our main character Saoirse, who spent her entire life training to become the next royal assassin. However, her life plans and life is derailed when her best friend is murdered by the crown, and it is continued to be derailed when she brings her friend back from the dead, which makes her the first soul guide in centuries. Due to this, she is summoned to an ancient magical forest by the Spider King, and kind of her new destiny and story is foretold from there. The book really intrigued me because I felt like it kind of had two fantasy paths that could exist normally in a fantasy story. The first one, the one our main character thought she was on, was just to be, you know, the age-old royal assassin controlling kingdoms from behind the shadows, but uh-oh, necromancy happened and now she has to go to this magical forest and deal with dark magic. Both of those things I love, but something about the fact that our main character had to pivot from one to the other really speaks to me. And yeah, I've heard also incredible things about this. I've been wanting to read more novels by Lori M. Lee, so I pre-ordered this, it came, I'm pumped to have it, and I will probably be reading it very soon. Alright, the most anticipated novels just keep on coming, because I also have The Empire of Dreams by Rae Carson. This is a new book and a new trilogy within the Girl of Fire and Thorns world and series. The Girl of Fire and Thorns trilogy is honestly one of the best, in my opinion, YA fantasy trilogies of all time. So when I heard and saw that more books are coming out in this world, I was very, very excited. They all also got new cover release designs. Well, obviously now they all match kind of this new aesthetic, which I do think is really beautiful. I honestly want to reread the Girl in Fire and Thorns series before I jump into this, but I think this is just set in the same world, possibly in the future. I don't really want to read the synopsis because spoilers, but again, this is one of my favorite series. I just feel like it's one of the most well-crafted, character-driven, growth fantasy story in YA that is out there, and I think it's beautiful. So to have another book in this world, I'm pumped. Next up is a book I plan to read very, very soon, and that is Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I have heard nothing but exceptional things about this. Also, S.A. Chakraborty blurbed it, who we all know how I feel about her and her stories. This is a war-focused adult fantasy tale that essentially follows our main character, who lives in a world where war and fighting is very central to reality. Everyone kind of has to participate in war, and our main character kind of plans to just serve his length in a campaign that he needs to, retire, move to the countryside with his family, and just live his life from there. However, when everyone he loves is murdered, his life path changes, and he basically vows to now get revenge by becoming the strongest swordsman in the world. Here the story is exceptional. I hear it portrays war in a very kind of gruesome fashion. I also hear that sort of the war magic is really interesting, because I do know there's components of magic, though our main character I don't believe has access to magic. So I've I'm really excited to pick this up. I feel like this is one that is gonna really capture me really quickly. I've also been kind of on an epic fantasy roll, so I'm trying to keep that up, and I know the second one might have just come out or is about to come out, so good time to pick up the first one. Next book I picked up was The Silence of Bones by June Her. I picked this up to participate in the Readathon, which happened earlier in the month of July. I've already read this book and really loved it. Honestly, it has spurred me to want to learn more about the historical time period this is set in, which is the Joseon era, which is a really long time period, so I just feel like there's lots to learn. This is a historical murder mystery thriller set in 1800 Joseon, Korea. We follow our main character, who's an indentured servant to the police department there, and essentially during this time, men cannot touch women. So they need female indentured servants and employees at the police station to handle the corpse, do evaluations of bodies, to talk to female family members or female suspects, things like that, which I found to be really interesting. We follow our main character, who is an indentured servant and is really good at being a detective, and she's kind of thrown into this mystery that obviously occurs at the beginning of this novel, where her mentor and primary detective becomes a primary suspect to the murder itself. This book is so gripping. I think it's so beautifully written and has such great historical atmosphere. This isn't a wrap up, but I have read this book and I really did love it. I thought the mystery was fantastic. I flew through it, so I would really recommend this book, and yeah, I picked it up this month, really enjoyed it, and it was just awesome, and it's making me want to again read way more stuff in this time period and learn more about this time period, so I'm sure more books will be bought inspired by this purchase. Next up, I have the Dragon Republic, which of course is the sequel to the Poppy War, which I read this month, and it completely destroyed my life in the best way possible. I loved it so much. So basically, right when I was finishing that book, I immediately picked up the sequel because I am going to be reading this literally as soon as I possibly can. The tagline on this novel is just brace yourself, and I honestly don't think I'm prepared for this in any capacity. Literally, so many people love the Poppy War and have also commented on recent videos like, LOL, just wait for the Dragon Republic. If you think you're messed up now, just wait. And oddly, that excites me to no end. I just can't wait to be destroyed by this novel so much, but The Poppy War was a book that completely took me by surprise in ways. I was kind of curious about it because it does have kind of a divided opinion going in, but I personally loved it. It is a historical fantasy story inspired by the Song period in Chinese history, as well as the Opium Wars and the Sino-Japanese War. It is a very gruesome tale that really brings the dark realities of warfare to the forefront. It's also a grimdark fantasy where essentially there is a lot of amoral things happening and a lot of grayness and darkness to the world itself. It to me just felt so well researched, so well crafted. It just had this I just felt so immersed in the reality of the story and in the characters' decisions. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So I can't wait to see where the book takes off based off the ending of the first one into the sequel, and the third one does come out later this year. So I feel like this is definitely going to be a marathon situation for me. But yeah, highly would recommend The Poppy War, but please do keep in mind that there are a lot of different trigger warnings. It's a very dark fantasy novel. It's an adult grim dark fantasy novel, so there's just a lot of different aspects, from violence to self-harm to sexual assault. So just keep that in mind if you're interested in the series. It is exceptional, and I think the author does a great job writing it, but just wanted to flag that. Next up is a book I probably should stop saying I'm so excited about, because all of these I am, but this I feel like has been kind of taking book Twitter by storm a bit, and it really caught my attention and I bought it right away, and that is House on the Cruilian Sea by TJ Klune. I honestly don't know too much about this, but how it was described to me that made me instantly buy it. This is an adult fantasy novel. It essentially follows 2 men that have and run an orphanage for bizarre and magical children that need a home, and apparently it's wonderfully whimsical and happy and charming and all of those things. I just say no more. Blurbs on the back, modern fairy tale about learning your true nature and what you love and will protect. It just sounds comforting and sweet and just like a sugar cookie in a book. And sometimes you need that, especially when I'm also planning to read The Dragon Republic very soon. I feel like I just need a sweet novel in my back pocket. All right, next is one of my most anticipated books of the year, which I have also read, and that is The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This came out in late June and it was exceptional. This whole trilogy was exceptional. Please read this trilogy. Also, understand that it really evolves from book 1 to book 2 to book 3. So if you read the first one, you're I feel like this is too romance heavy. Just check out book 2. I promise this is a sales pitch for you guys to read the Davenport trilogy because I really want you to read it. But the third one did come out in late June. It blew my mind. It was perfection. One of the best concluding novels I've read in a trilogy in a long time. But if you're not familiar, the Davenport trilogy is a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy story. In the first one, we follow our main character, Nahri, who is a thief in Cairo. And at the beginning of the book, she accidentally summons a warrior jinn. And then she's transported away to this magical city, which has been honestly torn apart by political divisions for thousands of years. There's a whole heap of political issues that people have to work through throughout this trilogy, and it is gold. The emotions, the characters, everything amazing. I would die for pretty much everyone in this book. It is so good. Third book came out, obviously. I bought it. Read it. On a less exciting note, I also did buy From Unseen Fire by Cass Morris. This is a Roman historical fantasy series that also has elemental magic. I did try to read this book, I won't lie, I did DNF it, so I wanted to show it off in this book haul because I did spend money on it. For me personally, I had a trouble connecting with the writing style. The reason why I bring this book up though is while I personally didn't enjoy it, I do feel like there is an audience out there that would really love it. If you love Roman history, if you know a lot about Roman history, historical politics, that is really forefront within this story. So if that is something you enjoy, I would definitely check this out. Right, we're in the home stretch of this book haul. The next two books I picked up to continue my own anti-racism education. The first one is How to Be an Anti-Racist. I've obviously heard a lot of exceptional things about this novel. It's on a lot of different recommendations and lists to check out. So obviously it's on my personal TBR for this month. I'm actually reading it as this video is up. So yeah, I picked this up obviously to continue to educate myself and expand my own personal knowledge. The blurb of this I think is great. It says the only way to undo racism is to consistently identify and describe it and then dismantle it. So this I feel like is going to be a great resource for me. I picked it up and I'm really looking forward to reading it and, you know, taking a lot from it, which I know it has to offer. And I also picked up Between the World and Me, which won the National Book Award I think this year. This is a really small book, but it's really beautiful and packs quite the impact. I've also heard really exceptional things about the audiobook of this, so I think I'm gonna try to rent that from the library and listen along as I read this because, again, apparently the audiobook is just beautiful. This, I believe, is framed in a way that the author is actually writing a letter to his son, and it basically explores a lot of different things, but his own perspectives and place within American society. It deeply looks at race within America, as well as how American society has profited and exploited Black individuals throughout time and history to this day. Again, this is a book I've heard really great things about, and I do plan to read and listen to this book at the same time, but I did pick this book up this month as well. And the last two books I picked up this month, I picked up with some credits I had that were about to expire. And the first book I picked up was The Beauty and Breaking by Michelle Harper, and this is actually a memoir documenting and recounting our author's experience as a Black ER physician, which is dominated by white men in America. This is said to be a poignant, true story of Harper's journey towards self-healing. Each of the patients she writes about teaches her something important in recuperation and recovery, how to let go of fear even when the future is murky, how to tell the truth when it's simpler to overlook it, as well as she shines a light on the systemic disenfranchisement of patients she treats while they struggle to maintain their health and dignity. I saw this book, I immediately knew I wanted to pick it up. Obviously, there are a lot of systemic issues when it comes to healthcare and access within American society. So having an opportunity to get a perspective on healthcare through someone who's working on the front lines, I thought was really poignant. I've heard great things about this, so I'm excited to have this on my shelf and add it to my long list of nonfiction I have been reading this year as well. And the last book I have to show off is one of my most anticipated YA releases for the year, and that is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. This is a new YA fantasy novel. I read the synopsis of this when this was first announced and it just caught my attention and I cannot let this book go. This is about Mozart's sister who also has a lot of musical talent, and she though gets left behind in terms of being able to pursue that genius. However, when a mysterious stranger shows up and basically presents our main character with an opportunity to pursue her dream at the expense of her brother, she takes it, and I think that is sort of the premise of this. This sounds like it's going to be historical and magical and music filled and dark and kind of a sibling rivalry, which I imagine is kind of interwoven with love. I am very intrigued by this book, so I'm excited to have it. And like, again, the back says, I am the sister, the other Mozart, and her story is mine. I don't know, guys, this just sounds dark and I'm here for it. So yeah, this is the last book I picked up this month. Alrighty guys, those are all the books I picked up in the past month. As you can see, I have a lot of reading to do, but I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye.